Hello, everybody. My name is Nisin Lopez. I'm a 42-year-old Cuban American artist, and today I'm here to speak about the sexual aspect of the targeted individual program. Some people know this as covert organized gun stalking, as community based mobbing, or as government retaliation. So, what exactly is gang stalking? Well, this is not easy to explain for sure. Organized stalking is pretty much a secret, illegal, long term, unconstitutional surveillance program that is designed to destroy those who have been designated as enemies of the state for whatever reason, usually the whistleblower type. Now, the isolated target is unjustly and systematically harassed in an organized fashion by civilians of all types of social status, by the way, that are enlisted to community programs such as InfraGard, Citizen Corps, Neighborhood Resource Unit, Neighborhood Watch, etc. The people that are recruited to participate in this torture program, the surveillance role players, they are sold a false narrative, they are lied to. They are basically told, that the target is a bad person, the target is a criminal, he's a threat to society, a monster that has to be taken out, etc. Now, the perpetrators, the citizens on patrol at the service of law enforcement, they will use all kinds of unethical means in order to harass, agitate, intimidate, and ultimately terrorize the target. I'm talking here about dark neuro-linguistic programming and negative aversive stimuli, The idea behind this unjust systematic harassment is to cause a nervous breakdown in the long run so that the target will end up in a psych ward, isolated, discredited, demonized, with no support system, totally traumatized. The targeted individual is basically terrorized, exposed to a stressor outside the range of usual human experience. The target is kept in a state of anxiety and hypervigilance, stressed out to the max. Keep in mind, very important, this harassment goes on day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, nonstop 24/7, everywhere you go. As a targeted individual, every time you go out in the general public, you're going to be messed with, nonstop, endless torment. So yeah, this is a takedown program, non-therapeutic, non-consensual human experimentation sponsored pretty much by the Department of Defense, intelligence agencies, private military contractors. We're talking here about the government, law enforcement. This is an interagency program. So let's go ahead and put this into perspective. As far as the sexual aspect of this personality disintegration program, covert organized gang stalking, number one, they're gonna brainwash people into believing that you, the targeted individual, are some type of sex offender. They're usually gonna go around telling people that you are either a rapist or a child molester, character assassination. Number two, they want you, the targeted individual, isolated with no support system. If you try to get a girlfriend, you try to go out on a date with some woman, try to get a wife, they're gonna come in, they're gonna pull the strings in order to sabotage that relationship. They don't want to see you happy, they want you, the targeted individual, isolated, discredited, demonized, with no support system, in a state of anxiety and hypervigilance, stressed out to the max, as traumatized as possible. They want you to feel helpless and destroyed. Number three, once you end up in a psychiatric institution, after years of emotional and psychological abuse, you're going to be labeled as a delusional paranoid schizophrenic. This is part of the character assassination program. The so-called doctors, the psychiatrists, psychologists, these people are in bed with law enforcement. They're going to give you potent psychiatric drugs that have serious side effects, such as severe insomnia, erectile dysfunction, and maybe even suicidal thoughts. If you take, for example, one of these drugs for a period, for an extended period of time, let's say 6 months, this is something that could mess with your hormones. If you take, for example, a drug, the psychiatric drug that is called risperidone, you know, This chemical, this drug, it can cause, breast tissue enlargement in men, gynecomastia, in some cases, not in all cases, but this could happen, And the one thing that this drug causes for sure is impotence, erectile dysfunction. So yeah, these are drugs that mess with your hormones. So yeah, the targeted individual, landing on a psych ward, this is part of the character assassination program. And the psychiatrists, the psychologists, these people are in bed with law enforcement for sure. Number four, another thing that is important to understand when it comes to being targeted, being a victim of this SIC program, this behavioral modification program, it's important that you, the targeted individual, understand that you're going to be covertly drugged on a regular basis in your own place, in your own apartment. Yes, as crazy as it sounds. Basically, the people in positions of authority behind this personality disintegration program, they're gonna go to the people in charge of your apartment complex. They're gonna speak to the management. They're gonna tell them a bunch of lies, of course, that you're some dangerous criminal and all that stuff, that you're under investigation, this and that and the other. They're gonna be given the green light, of course, and these people are gonna pull the strings so that some type of device is attached to the water pipeline in your apartment. Meaning that, for example, if you are like me, that I usually drink water, the water that comes out of the sink, and I fill a bottle. I've done that ever since I came to the States in 1993. I stopped doing that, of course, but I've done that all the time. So, which means that the water that was coming out of the sink had some type of chemical agent, some type of drug that was being administered to me on a regular basis, day after day, and I didn't even know it, you know? So, this happened to me, and when this happened to me, I realized that something was not right. I mean, I know my own body. I realized that I was being drugged, and I figured out that it had to be on a regular basis, because when I go to a restaurant or something like that, I don't drink from an open bottle. I don't drink from a cup or anything like that. I only drink, like from a sealed bottle or like a Pepsi can or something. So I figured that if I was being covertly drugged on a regular basis, it had to be the water that was coming out of the sink in my apartment. So I started drinking from sealed bottles, and after drinking from sealed bottles, like for like 3 or 4 days, everything came back to normal. So I understood that I was being drugged on a regular basis. They were administering to me some type of, I don't know what it was. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I know what it was, but I can tell you for sure that it was some type of sexual stimulant because, I mean, you know your own body. And, it was something out of this world. It just wasn't normal so the reason why they were doing that is because they were exposing me to certain situational scenarios pretty much on a daily basis. So yeah, they're gonna do this kind of thing to you. In case you think I'm talking trash, I would like for you to check out the book 1996. This is a book, a very interesting book, written by the targeted individual Gloria Naylor. In page 142 of that book, she basically speaks of how these people in government affiliated people, how they can basically attach some type of device to the water pipeline in your place, so they can administer you They can administer you with behavioral modification agents, chemicals and drugs that go into residential buildings through hidden, installed, maintained plastic plumbing lines, And as far as the other thing that I mentioned, if you think I'm talking trash, that I'm exaggerated, that I'm delusional, whatever, please don't believe me. Do your own research. I would like for you to check out the case of the former FBI agent Gerald Sosby. Mr. Gerald Sosby, he used to be part of the FBI, and then he became a targeted individual. And they did this kind of shit to him. They were sending him, teenage girls that could pass for 18, hoping that he would make a mistake or something. Go ahead and check out his interview with Ramola D, who is also a targeted individual, by the way. Number 5, artificial telepathy. The cognitive researchers behind the targeted individual program in our modern days, they have access to highly sophisticated neural weapons, meaning remote neural influencing, a classified technology that enables them pretty much to modify the target against his will. They don't need to microchip you at this point. This mind control technology is based on the biofrequency of the human test subject, meaning that they can link your unique brain signature, meaning your brain waves, to their supercomputer. Yes, we're talking here about brain-to-computer interface. The handlers in fusion centers, they can insert thoughts, words, phrases, images, impulses, dream videos, etc. into your psyche, especially if you are in an altered state, This is known as synthetic telepathy. They will implant basically, images of unnatural sexual things into your mind. They want to make you believe that those are your real thoughts when they are not. Think, for example, about the effects this will have on you in the long run. Keep in mind, that you've been harassed for years, and at this point, you are in a state of functional disorientation. So we're talking here about a perfected mind rape operation, pretty much. The targeted individual, Michael F. Bell, the author of the book, The Invisible Crime, he believes that, the neuroscientists behind this system are using these neural weapons to see if they can modify, the target, meaning if they can change, for example, the sexual orientation of the target. So we're talking here about a Nazi experiment, pretty much, behavioral modification on steroids, So let's go ahead and put things into perspective. Let's go ahead and summarize this. Number 1, on one hand, they're going to brainwash people into believing that you, the targeted individual, are a sex offender. You're going to experience heavy, overwhelming, community-based mobbing, meaning organized stalking. This is done in order to cause a nervous breakdown. In order for them to reprogram you, first they need to fracture your mind. Number 2, as soon as you end up in a psychiatric institution, you're going to be medicated with psychiatric drugs that have serious side effects, chemicals that mess with your hormones. Number 3, you're going to be covertly drugged with behavioral modification agents. They're going to do this to you in order to expose you to situational scenarios. They're going to set you up. They want to make you look like a hideous criminal. Number 4, they're going to attack you with neural weapons that can affect your behavior. They're going to implant images of sexual debauchery into your psyche, a mind rape operation. They're trying to push you over the edge, basically. So these, ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of shit the government is doing in order to neutralize free thinkers that are considered, some type of ideological threat.